Good evening. Today is May 17th. Welcome to the Peabody School Committee budget meeting. This meeting is being recorded by the Peabody School Committee recording secretary, Leanna Harris, and is being taped by Peabody Access Television. Before we begin, can we please stand for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a reminder, there will be no public participation at this meeting. There will be public participation allowed at a later meeting. If we'd like to start, I'd like to start with Dr. Levine, as he's given us an updated information on what we've asked for last night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to give a shout out to my executive assistant, Marge Macarelli, who fell a couple weeks ago and broke her wrist. It did not heal correctly, and they had to do surgery this week. So she's been out a while, and I'm begging you to come back soon. This is an updated sheet of recommendations for you.
Motion to receive.
Second.
And has answers to a number of your questions, I think all the questions that you asked last night. The first is the cover sheet, which has the list of recommended cuts. We were able to increase some of the cuts in the top half and added about $87,000 to the cut list, which means we gave you more money to play with actually in the excess. However, we also eliminated one of the cut recommendations because it wasn't what we thought it was. In looking at the what we thought was a secretarial position with the deans at the high school, it is a para position. Looking at the amount of money that that person made versus the services that would be lost, it just wasn't worth the cut. So I took it off the list. So the total now is $183,580 surplus. That's the first sheet. The second, third, and most importantly, the fourth sheet, I did the class size averages for you. I would like to remind the board that the actual max by contract, K through 2, is 25 students, and the actual max per contract, I believe, is 27, 3 through 5. That should be 27. So it's a little higher than you guys thought. However, you will see that we are significantly below that in most classes throughout the school system. The average kindergarten class is 18.8. This is all of our elementary schools, and you have the individual ones. The average grade 1 is 19.9. The average grade 2 is 20.16. The average grade 3 is 20.5. The average grade 4 is 21.2. And the average grade 5 is 19.9. I will say that over the summer, things change. And there are times when we just have to add teachers because of the numbers. So I don't expect this to remain, let me just say that this is fluid. It changes almost every day, especially in the summer. And I will keep you updated throughout the summer on a weekly basis about class sizes and any time that we're in danger of having to add a teacher, and I say that positively. So our class size numbers are pretty good throughout the school system. There are a couple of things that might grab your attention, like the grade 5 at the center having 24, and the grade 3 at the Brown having 24.5. You do have enough money to put back teachers, depending upon what you decide to do tonight. The next question that was asked was about busing, and I want to speak to that just a bit. I did speak with Mrs. Dunn this afternoon. If we were to go strictly by state rules, we would save over $700,000. I know that's a big number, and I know that may surprise some of you. However, let me tell you what that involves. That involves not busing anybody grades 7 through 12, because we don't have to by state law, and only busing students who live more than 2 miles from their school, and that is by state law. So we would significantly save on the number of buses, and we would save over $700,000, but it's not a recommendation that I as superintendent would make. I would, however, because another question was asked, recommend that you think seriously about possibly increasing the cost for transportation. We have not gone up in transportation in quite some time. We're at $300. If we raise transportation costs by $50, we would gain $50,000. If we raised it by $100, we would gain $100,000. It's just out there. I wanted to get that out there because it was a question that was asked, and that is the information that you need in order to make your decisions. The next question was about tuitions. And in your packet, you will find tuition comparisons from 10 or so random school systems. You'll find that the Little Tanners program is well within the average at $7,000 a year. That's the smaller program at the high school. However, the McCarthy program, the integrated school program, is significantly lower, asking I believe $4,200 a year for that program. Now, we need to keep in mind that the Little Tanners program is 3 hours longer than the McCarthy program. That's one thing. However, and I will ask my esteemed business manager to tell you this, we'd like to compare that just for a moment to private school preschools.
Through the chair. So I have 2 little ones. Currently, we do private. Great school, but we're paying about $35,000 per year for the 2 kids.
So private preschools can be significantly higher than our preschools. And I think it's important for the public to understand that they're getting a good deal here with qualified, certified teachers, which is also not always the case in private preschool. So I would recommend to you that you think about not the Little Tanners program, because that's at the upper end of what people are charging, but I would recommend that you think about increasing your tuition at the McCarthy, as we have not done so for a while. Just to finish my thought, if you increased it to $5,000 from $42,000, we would gain $39,000 for the budget. If you increased it by $500, you would gain a third less, and by $250, you would gain a third less. If you did it over 3 years, you would gain the $39,000, but over a 3-year period. And that is, I believe, the questions that were asked of me to research. I want to thank my outstanding team, particularly Jared and Kara. The amount of work that we've put into this budget is astronomical. That's our job, but that's my job. Their job is to do what they need to do in order to make me look good, and they make me look good all the time because of the quality of the work that they put in and the hours that they put in. So I would just like to publicly thank Kara and Jared for all of the work that they've done in helping us get to this point. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm done.
Mr. Rosnell, thank you.
Actually, Dr. Levine answered half of my question. How many model students do we currently have at the McCarthy?
I believe it's 40%. Is that the number we came up with?
133, 52.
130.
Okay.
52 was the number?
52, through the chair. Right now, currently, we have about 52 paying students. 133, 134 is the program.
Okay. Thank you. I'll yield for now, just to digest that information.
Thank you. Mr. Olympio?
Through the chair. Dr. Levine, could I get your passionate plea for the potential 2 new positions, just your take on the importance of them, and just would like to get that information going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio, through the chair. Even in a down budget year, school systems need to move forward. We are a very large organization with 1,000 employees and 6,000 students. And if we stand still, we really move backwards. There are 2 positions that I think are critical to the health and welfare of this school system for the future. We cannot continue, for example, to expect that Kara is going to do all the work that she does every single day, every single year, because she's doing the work of at least 2 and possibly 3 people. The Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Technology would service us in a couple of areas. One, instruction and curriculum. We need that badly at the high school next year. We are entering our first year of the NEASC accreditation process. The high school is a level 3 high school. We need to get it at least to level 2. I don't see any reason why we can't and why we shouldn't. Therefore, the instruction and curriculum person designated would spend most of their time next year at the high school. Coupled with technology, we have the infrastructure at the high school. We also have the machines at the high school. What we don't have at the high school that we have at the middle school is someone to manage and push forward how the instruction and the technology marry each other. This position would do that. So next year, I foresee this position concentrating at the high school and then expanding district-wide. The second position, I am convinced that we can do our guidance outreach to students in a different and better way. There are a few things that bother me about guidance at the high school. One, the wrong person, and bless his soul, he works so hard and he's retiring this year. Phil Sheridan, our athletic director, has no background in counseling and guidance, and he evaluates guidance and counseling. That shouldn't be. We need someone who's expert in guidance and counseling to evaluate guidance and counseling. The people that we have in the guidance department deserve the best advice and advisor that they can have. And right now, because the position that leads that department is a Unit A position, it cannot evaluate the guidance counselors. They are in the same union, and therefore they cannot evaluate one another. We need to change that. That needs to become a Unit B position. It needs to be a director K through 12 with a concentration at the high school. And we need to go about a fresh pair of eyes, taking a look at the guidance program and seeing how we can service kids better. Because we're here to service kids. You are, I am, teachers are, counselors are. Our clientele is kids, not parents, not the greater community, and not each other. It's kids. We're supposed to make decisions that are in the best interest of kids. I believe it's critical for us to take a look at this position as a position that will move us forward into the future. So I passionately feel that these areas are critical to the needs of the school system, will bring better instruction and technology to our kids, and better guidance services. Not that the guidance services are bad, that's not to be critical of anybody. It's just that I think we need somebody with the expertise to bring the guidance to the next level. And right now, I believe we're lacking in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Rossignol?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Levine, that was an impassioned and appropriate response to Mr. Olympio's question, and I can actually completely agree with your sentiments. I know when we were looking at superintendents, we went to Lynn, and when we sat before the Lynn school system and we looked at a director for curriculum and a director for special education and a director for this program and a director for that program, there was probably 14 people sitting around a table enlightening us on their position and their role in that school district. Right now, we have Ms. Murtagh as the be-all, end-all. And I think if we're going to continue to move the district forward, I think that position is critical. I want to go back also just real quick, and I know Mr. Olympio still has the floor, regarding the pre-K position that we were talking about. I do think looking at that and increasing our tuition would be a great discussion. I was just reading the paper yesterday, or maybe even today, about Beverly and how they still charge for kindergarten. They charge for full-day kindergarten, something that we don't. And that's something that I would never, ever support. They're doing not only preschool, but kindergarten as well. I think getting that more in line with what's out there already, I think is something that would behoove us moving forward. And then lastly, I know you had mentioned busing and increasing the fee. I'd really be hesitant for that, to be perfectly honest with you. Both decreasing the amount of buses that we currently have or increasing the bus fee. One thing that we keep hearing over and over again is how free and reduced lunch is continuing to rise. So our population right now, the ones that we really need to service, I don't think can afford an increase in a bus fee right now. So that would be something that I'd be really hard pressed to move on. So those are just my rough thoughts with Dr. Levine's presentation thus far, but thank you.
Mr. Olympio?
I'm actually, one other question. Are there similar districts that have these positions? I mean, is this something that's unique or?
We're pretty light by comparison to other school systems. In Revere, there are 2 assistant superintendents. There used to be 3. In Everett, there are 3 assistant superintendents, and by the way, they make significant money. I'm talking in the 140s and up. Medford has 2 assistant superintendents. I don't know about Malden, but school systems that are like us, we're way understaffed, way understaffed.
Through the chair, and I think the public needs to understand that. They hear, potentially hiring new positions, but I don't think there's a segment of the population out there that doesn't realize how understaffed that we are. So, thank you.
I'd actually like to speak on that point. You'd be hard pressed to go to any district nearby to find one superintendent, one assistant superintendent who's in charge of curriculum, who's in charge of grant writing. Most districts around here, definitely most districts our size, have 2 or 3, if not 4 people in those different roles. Curriculum director, it'll bring consistency, especially if we start off right at the high school for the first year. I think that's a win-win. K-12 guidance, obviously, not all of our students are going to college. Some are going to trades, some are going to vocationals afterwards, and it's important that our guidance department really works to that and services the kids, as Dr. Levine had mentioned. Lastly, one of the things that I would love to see, possibly not this year, but definitely next, is a grant writer. We currently have $3.8 million in grants that are managed by our assistant superintendent. We need someone in there who can not only manage, but possibly grow those. And granted, Peabody isn't in a position of some other districts where we can get a lot of grant money, but there's money out there. There's private money out there, there's public money at the state level, there's public money at the federal level that possibly we can obtain. And a salaried grant writer, an effective salaried grant writer, can obtain a lot of that money and bring it into the city. And we're in dire need of that. So I'm definitely in favor of the first 2 positions. And if there's some way we can weave our magic, I would definitely at some point want to entertain a grant writer. I just think that for our students, it's so important to have these people in position, because these people not only will help our students, but help our teachers, help instruction, help in guidance, and bring money back into the city that we desperately need. So I'll yield to the school committee members at this point. Ms. Carpenter?
Thank you. I have 2 subjects I want to speak on, but I'll follow up with the 2 new positions. Through the chair, Dr. Levine, the K-12 guidance coordinator, if we approve that position in regards to the reduction on the department head guidance and the 2 high school guidance positions, will that new position compensate and take care of the missing space there?
Through the chair. I believe you're asking about numbers, right? So we project a little over 1,500 students for next year. When I was here in 2011, we were 1,850. So we've lost over the past 5 or 6 years the equivalent of almost an entire class, and we haven't reduced. So I believe that eventually, if you allow this transition, you will have 6 guidance counselors rather than 7. 6 divided by 1,500 is 250, which is the one of the optimum numbers that the national guidance folks suggest per guidance counselor. Of course, they're going to recommend low. I believe that the K through 12 guidance counselor will have a modified number of students at the high school. So I think that we'll wind up with somewhere between 260 and 280 per guidance counselor. possibly this K through 12, depending upon who we hired for this position, possibly this K through 12 guidance director could service seniors. We have not had a guidance counselor who focused on seniors and the transition between high school and college, for example, or high school and jobs, or high school and a vocational program, et cetera, et cetera. We would have to see what the skills are of the person that we hire. So the answer to your question is, I do not believe that going with this program, we will be out of whack with any other school system regarding the number of guidance counselors per student. I also didn't talk about, and if you would allow me just a minute, the articulation between the middle school and the high school, and the articulation between the elementary school and the middle school would now have somebody responsible for that. We don't have anyone responsible for that articulation. So having, directing and coordinating guidance counselors talking between levels, I think is really important as well. This person would also do that. But the answer to your question is, I do not believe with the projections that we have that guidance counselors would be overburdened regarding student ratio
Where would this person be housed?
at the high school.
At the high school, okay. Okay. In regards to the projected amounts that you've put next to them, 100 for each position, do you think that might be a little high? Maybe we could take that down a little bit on both positions and use some of that money someplace else?
Through the chair. We could. Both of these positions would be Unit B positions and would be guided by contract. Let me explain the process, which I think most of you already know. Only the school committee can create or eliminate jobs. So the first thing you would have to do is vote to eliminate the $4,500 department head job at the high school. The next thing that you would have to do is vote to create the K through 12 guidance counselor, guidance director. And then once you did that, my job would be, number one, to get you a newly defined job description that you would approve, and to negotiate with Karen McGovern and Unit B as to where these positions would fall in the contract. So a lot would depend upon background and experience of the person coming in. I believe 100 is on the high end. If you wanted to cut $15,000 from each of those, I wouldn't have a problem doing that.
Okay. So along those lines, in regards to money, I want to go back up to the kindergarten paras. I'd like to start actually figuring out, based on what the board sees fit and where we want to try to save some positions to actually get into those figures. And my thought process on the kindergarten paras, where I'm very passionate about keeping them, and I think we had a very good idea by reducing the hours, but now I'm rethinking if we increase the McCarthy tuition to the 5,000, that gives us, and follow along with my math to make sure I'm doing it right, that gives us the 39,000. If we take that, apply it to the 78 reduction on the K paras, and before we had this conversation, take another 39,000 from the surplus at the bottom of this page, fully put the K paras back, or instead of taking it from the surplus, taking the 15 from each one of those two positions that we just discussed. So what I'm looking at is if the board is so inclined to work those numbers, and if they work out properly, to restore that reduction.
Through the chair, just to respond, because it's important that I say this, the mayor has asked me to bring his thoughts on this. He fully supports bringing the kindergarten paras back, and if possible, to full status. I fully support that as well.
So, using the figures that I just put out there, is that something that we could do if the board, I mean, if I can put it in the form of a motion, if somebody has another formula that they want to discuss?
On that point?
On that point.
On that point, Mr.
Yeah.
Hockman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Carpenter, absolutely, I think there's going to be a unanimous vote to support the maintenance of the kindergarten paraprofessionals in their current status. If you yield, perhaps maybe we could talk about a bigger picture and talk about other things and do it all, or maybe more things at one time. Unless you want to proceed on this, I don't know how you want to, it's your floor, I'm just stepping on it, I'm sorry.
You know what, I'm not gonna put the motion forward because I'm sure we're gonna go through a few more things, but I just wanted to make sure my figures were accurate moving forward, that that's something that could happen.
On that point, I would fully support that as well. And as Mrs. Stanton said earlier about, pre-K programs and how expensive they are, I recall myself with my 2 children in a private pre-K program, and then coming over to free kindergarten. It was a raise. I mean, it was an incredible benefit that we give to our students and our parents. Some districts still charge for kindergarten, so if we could maybe raise that a little bit over at the McCarthy, I would fully support bringing back the K-Paras because, as I said last night, these students are coming in many times for the first time into a building, 22, 23 of them with one teacher in the room. I just think for safety reasons and just for so many other reasons, I fully support it as well, so I would support your motion.
So I'll yield on any motion until we finish going through the list so that the numbers work out properly.
Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Carpenter. To Mr. Rosignol's point earlier regarding the cost of kindergarten, there are many cities and towns neighboring Peabody that charge, whether it's for a half day, because that's all they offer, or a full day of kindergarten. And I also agree with you, I wouldn't support a tuition for kindergarten. We need to get kids in school as early as we can, and we need to make it available to as many people as possible. With regard to the budget considerations that we've received tonight, above the line, if you will, the budget reductions that the superintendent has put forward, I think I'm able to support all but 2. I agree with Mr. Rosignol's assessment that the Kylie move expenses is not something that we should entertain when we're talking about potentially losing paraprofessionals or teachers. I know it's something that is needs to happen. I know that the state of that building is not terrific. And in line with Dr. Levine's methodology or thoughts relative to if kids come in, we'll need to hire teachers. If the Board of Health shuts you down, we're going to move, and we'll find the money somewhere. And I'd rather find the money somewhere on that line than pink slip somebody. And I fully hope that if the mayor was willing to provide us $80,000, and I know that Dr. Levine mentioned it was coming in the form of a capital expenditure, I would hope that, first of all, the mayor's number of $71,786,793 isn't final, and I know that he's taking care of more important business tonight than what we're doing, but I think that we're going to wind up getting a bump there somewhere. So let me just play out. The second concern I would have on the above-the-line expenditures is the homeless transportation, and I know that we had a nice conversation about that last night, and I think that everybody was accurate in what they said, that there's going to be some offsets in terms of sharing those expenditures. My fear is that that cuts both ways. We have kids that are coming to Peabody because they're homeless from a foreign district, and we have kids that are from Peabody that are homeless that we're going to pay for going to a foreign district. And even though this is a relatively small number and it might be a conservative, it's something I can think about, but at this point, I don't know that I'm comfortable with it because I think that that's going to, I don't want to, there are some risks I'm willing to absorb within this budget, and I don't know enough about that one yet because of the change that hasn't taken place yet to sit on that. With that, below the line,
Can I just jump in for above the line? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that the school committee understands the $80,000. If you vote not to move, not to support the move, what you're really voting is that the $80,000 becomes $154,000.
149.
149.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because what you're doing is increasing the deduction. In our budget, we have the difference between 80 and 149 in our budget already.
Right, 84.
And that's what we're paying for. The $80,000 reduction is because the mayor said he'll defray the cost
Yeah,
by 80,000.
I-
So,
I got that.
okay, so we're not taking the 80,000 out, we're going to add to it as a deduction, if you so choose to do that as a board.
Well, no, I'm going to take the 84 out. Yes, I'm going to take, I'm going to not support the 84 and $84,000 that's allocated in line 471.
That's right.
And I'm also not going to support the 65,000 that's allocated for telephones for the move. That's in line, I think it's line 22 move and 22 rent, whatever they are, so.
Okay.
And
I just wanted to make sure we were on the,
yeah, no, and that's one of the reasons I was asking Ms. Carpenter if she would yield, because I think that there's some numbers that we can come up with here without impacting staff. So with that, and I'll get to numbers in a few minutes after I go through a few more items, I think we all agree that the kindergarten paras are going to get reinstated. We're going to find that $78,000 somewhere. And I thank you, and it may be from that telephone that we're not going to pay for, the telephone move that we'll find somewhere else if we need to. And thank you, Dr. Levine and the administration for providing us with the class size projections, because this is absolutely helpful in regard to looking at the staff reductions that are proposed. And with that, I would reinstate the grade 3 teacher at the Brown, the grade 4 teacher at the Welch, and the grade 5 teacher at the center. So I need 210 grand there. I need 78 for the kindergarten paraprofessionals. I appreciate Dr. Levine's candor in the reduction of $30,000 collectively on the 2 new positions that he's looking for. I haven't completed the math yet, and I do have a few other questions, but I think with the reduction of the 84 for the move, the reduction of the 65 from the telephones, the surplus would change. It would be reduced by $105,000 if I am right in regard to the Kylie move expenses that we would take out, and also the homeless transportation, which is 105. So 183 and change minus the 105, and that's a $580,000. Mr. Stanton is.
Yeah, can I clarify one thing through the chair? So you have, the total move is $149,000 that is budgeted. If you minused out the 80 that the mayor said potentially he could get, then you're leaving 69 in there. So the two lines, 84,000 for the move and 65 for the telephone equipment and everything, that equals the 149. So the real savings would be an additional 69,000.
Thank you. And I think that was the point Dr. Levine was trying to hit me with, that golf club that got lost in Revere somewhere from earlier tonight, those of you that attended the George Peabody Medal ceremony. So I get a delta of 69 there. And if that's the case, I don't need to take the 80 out of the 183 at that point, right? Because we've already taken it out. So I would just have to reduce the 183,580 by the 25 for the homeless transportation if we weren't comfortable with that. And that gives me 158 and 69, 7, that's 217 that I put back in, plus the 30 for the 2 positions, so it's 247. I also would agree with the McCarthy tuition increase. I would support a $5,000 tuition at the McCarthy, which would increase revenue for 39 grand, and we're starting to buy things if there's support for what I'm saying, and I don't know that there is, but before on that point, yeah.
Mr. Ross.
Just because we're basically talking about the top section, and I noticed those numbers changed since yesterday to today as far as special education tuition, high-low has changed, utilities has changed, special education legal has changed, and obviously homeless transportation has changed. So can you just give me your rationale on the changes that you made on the above the line, we'll call it?
we squeezed a little tighter, and that's really the rationale for every one of those. we have no idea. For example, we're pretty solid on the tuitions, the big number.
Yep.
Homeless transportation, it's a crapshoot. You know, I could take away $100,000 from that, or add 100,000. So it's to Jared's point.
Absolutely.
So we're doing the best that we can with trying to get a budget to balance that you're comfortable with. We did spend quite a bit of time going through each line item again. We felt comfortable. We really, in a $72 million budget, this was tweaking.
Sure.
But it's important to us because even the small tweaks get you another teacher or whatever it is that you're going to add back. I was trying to give you a little bit more flexibility.
Okay. Because through the chair, because the only one I can understand high-low, I can understand the tuition. The one I was, and then it's the smallest number out of all of them, to be perfectly honest with you, besides homeless transportation, and I agree with Mr. Hockman. I said that yesterday, that would be something I wouldn't support, because to be honest with you, I agree with your point. There might be just as many coming out as going in, but I also don't necessarily trust the state in changing their rules and regulations, considering they're already operating in a deficit of their own. So I agree with not changing that compared to what was on the previous page. But the other one is the special education legal. I know it's only $7,000, but I know how much attorneys end up costing, and that number could be blown way out of the water just by one case. So I would almost not feel comfortable with the extra $7,145 that you added to that line from yesterday to today, as far as a deduction. I'll yield.
Just through the chair, you're absolutely right, Mr. Rossignol, but we have had a particularly difficult year this year with particularly difficult cases. We utilize the special ed attorney a lot.
Right.
I think that, you know, luck has to be on our side somewhere. So I think that maybe next year we won't use them quite as much.
Mr. Hockman.
Thank you. And so getting back into some other lines that excite me, if you will.
I'm not sure I want to be here for that.
Yeah. You know, yesterday I talked about attendance and the costs of attendance staff, and I mentioned I hadn't gotten to the administrative or the well, this is personnel, but I didn't have an opportunity to get beyond the schools, the individual school budgets, and then I get to the administration and I see an attendance clerical that's there's 2 FTEs there that we're spending almost $102,000 in FY17, and that's increasing to $125,000. And there's no steps and lanes, I don't think, in clerical, and certainly, again, people are entitled to raises, but beyond the $125,000 and change that's budgeted, there's an attendant supervisor at almost $75,000, and then beyond that, there's attendance overtime at $4,500. And I know that Dr. Levine's going to have some shiny rationale for all this. Seems to me an awful lot of money and to spend on quite a few people and hours. And this is beyond the attendance people in the buildings that we talked about yesterday at the high school and at the middle school. I don't think there's anyone at the elementary level. But so, Dr. Levine, can you, if you will, could you explain what those positions, their functions and all that?
All critical positions, a couple of them are mislabeled. The 2 positions that are listed that you first talked about, the 2 attendance folks, that's Mary Ellen and Maria, the data gathering people. Everybody knows who they are. These are really data analysts for us. They gather all the data from the state. The state has piled data upon data upon data and expectation upon us. They do a wonderful job with that stuff. So they're really mislabeled. They're really data analysts, but they have to fall into a category according to contract. So the attendant supervisor is the person I talked about yesterday who does all of our court hearings. He goes to people's houses and gets kids out of bed to come to school. He establishes relationships with families, etc. and that's a really important job that we need to have. I'm not sure what the fourth one was.
It was the smallest, an OT line for
Okay,
attendance.
so that's the rationale for those positions.
Okay, and I know we're having the misfortune of the re-retirement of Dr. Charette. Can you just identify the Human Resource Administrator's line? I just can't pick it out.
It's line 452.
Am I on the next
In
page?
administration,
452.
right under the attendant supervisor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. And I was concerned about that line because I think Dr. Charette is at a .6 FTE, or he's getting paid at what is comparable to a point. And we're advertising that out at 1 FTE, right?
Through the chair. Yes, the school committee agreed to an $85,000 to $100,000. And by the way, I hired somebody yesterday, Steve Russell, who has been with the school system in the past and has HR background, terrific HR background, has agreed to a contract as of yesterday, and we'll be introducing him at a future school committee meeting. We're very happy to have him back. He's a Peabody boy, and he'll do a wonderful job.
And I think,
I'm sorry, Steve Farrell. I keep
Farrell.
saying Russell. I even called him Russell last night.
I was going to say
Yeah, it's Farrell.
Farrell.
Steve Farrell.
oh, good.
That's wonderful.
He's going to change his name to Russell.
He doesn't even live on Russell Street.
He doesn't,
Yes.
but he's going to move there.
And my last point for now is, through the chair to Mr. Stanton, the health insurance reduction that you're, and by the way, all of the above-the-line items are risks that we're either comfortable or uncomfortable taking. That's what they are. And as Dr. Levine said, and we all know, this thing can blow up with, one horrible winter in terms of, snow removal and hiring people to take snow off roofs and, a catastrophe of some sort or another. And we all pray that that doesn't happen. But Mr. Stanton, with regard to the health insurance reduction, is this the initiative that the mayor has put forward with regard to an incentive for staff members to opt out of health insurance?
I considered that through the chair when I was doing that, but other reasons for this is we're really diving deep into the grants. We think that we can charge more monies to the grants for health insurance through the mayor's new initiative, through accurate budgeting, and hopefully that there is some other changes in the health insurance that work in our favor.
And you reminded me of my last question, which I thought I just presented, but I didn't. And thank you for that, is the employee physicals. And certainly important to make sure that we're all well and healthy. Why aren't these covered by the health insurance that everybody is required to have?
Well, some are, I would imagine, but some aren't. Wellness physicals aren't always covered by insurance companies.
To the extent that they are, do we submit costs to the employee's insurance provider?
I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out.
And if we don't, can we? I mean, there's no
Absolutely.
reason, if there's an
Yeah.
insurance
No question.
policy in place and it's covered, we should bear the benefit of that. Thank you, everyone.
Ms. Carpenter?
Thank you. I just wanted to touch on the homeless transportation reduction, 25,000. I know that Mr. Rosenthal, Mr. Hockman said they're not in favor of it, and it's a gamble, but I just want to remind you that it's still an increase on that line of $115,000. We were at 160, we're going to be at 275. It's not that much of a gamble. It's a huge increase anyway. So for my support on that, and if Mr. Stanton is adding up all of our figures that we're coming up with, I would still want to keep the 25,000 in there for that gamble. So, that was just my point on that. I guess I'd have to feel everybody out to see if Mr. Stanton should keep adding.
How many seats are in the Honda Odyssey?
Through the chair, may I suggest that one when you guys feel that you've had enough and you're ready, I would appreciate, and I think Mr. Stanton would appreciate, motion by motion, what you're supporting motion item by item, and what you want to add back, and then we'll add them up, and I'll know what my marching orders are. Okay?
Mr. Olympio?
Does somebody have the floor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Carpenter, you still have the floor.
Is it on my subject?
Go ahead.
It's not on that subject?
No.
Okay, then I'll start with a motion. I'd like to make a motion to accept the 25,000 homeless transportation reduction.
Second.
Second.
On that motion?
Yeah.
Mr. Hockman?
On that motion, but to Dr. Levine's point, do you want us to take each of those items independently, or can we group some stuff?
Well, you can do it any way you want. I just need to know, and I think that Jared is adding as we move forward. So, as you know, until you actually vote on something, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, so I agree with Ms. Carpenter on the motion, this one to take separately, and then we can group
Yeah,
some
that's what I
stuff.
figured, yeah.
All right. On that motion, then, roll call vote?
Mr. Rosano?
No.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes,
Mr. Hoffman?
No,
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
you have to vote.
you have to step, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no. It was 3 yeses and 2 noes.
It was 3-2.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, he didn't have to break a
Oh,
tie.
okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
We're good.
Let the
Motion
record
carries.
reflect, had Mr. Amico voted.
Yes, I did.
50 in.
Okay, so then we can start doing some numbers and adding up, okay. Do you want me to make oh, we're gonna have to make a motion on the McCarthy.
Absolutely.
Could we just yield for 1
Oh,
second?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Olympio did have a question or?
No,
concern?
it's, you know, it's on other line items. Let's get the motions out of the way that
You wanna do the whole thing?
we're in favor of, it seems.
Thank you. So I'll bring it back to Ms. Carpenter
Okay, why don't you?
Yeah, so I'm,
or Mr. Hockman.
oh,
I'm
thank you.
sorry, go ahead.
I appreciate the chairwoman of the Finance Committee yielding to me for this motion. I would make a motion, we'll take this one separately too, I think, to accept the recommendation of the superintendent for the special education legal reduction.
Second.
On the motion?
Second.
Roll call. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just for
On the motion.
clarification, you're talking about the increase from yesterday's page to this of the 7,100 and whatever.
The full 35 that's, right, is that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
my biggest fear, just on this point, my biggest fear is just increasing that line item from yesterday, which was 27,000, up to the 35. So that's my biggest issue, is the increase, not necessarily the line itself.
I'd like to amend my motion to accommodate Mr. Rosignol's concern, and then at a later point, if we need to deal with that $7,500, we can.
Thank you.
So I'd amend my motion to a reduction in the special education legal line, 27.5?
Yep, if I may, to represent yesterday's line item number, which is $27,855.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mr. Rosano?
Yes.
Mr. Amico? No,
Mr.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So,
I'll take the next one, and you can deal with the McCarthy, okay?
yeah, go ahead.
So I'd make a motion to accept the balance of the budget reductions above the line, if you will. I'll go through them line by line. Special ed tuitions, high-lows, substitutes, health insurance reduction, maintenance, utilities, custodial overtime district-wide, special education transportation, workers' compensation, athletics, superintendent, curriculum, Medicaid, and technology at the projected amounts proposed by the superintendent.
Second.
On that motion, Ms. Dunn?
Question on the reduction in maintenance. That figure, for one thing, the figure is so odd. What would that reduction consist of?
So this 89, through the chair, this 89,692 is the amount that was above the level fund.
I see, okay, so it would be level funded.
It will be level
All
funded.
right, now I can understand. All right. Thank you.
On that motion, anyone else? All right, just roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Mr. Nico? I just said it.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. Motion carries. Ms. Dunn?
I do have a question on the Medicaid. I know that number is just a moving target in light of what's going on in Washington. How much reimbursement do we normally get from Medicaid reimbursements? Do we know? Is it
Well-
fairly static, or does it
The me-
vary every year?
Let me get that. What this line, though, is this is based on the, I apologize, I have to look through my packet to get the exact amount that we pay for Medicaid.
If I may jump in while he's looking, I
Sure.
think the Medicaid reimbursement that you're talking about
I'm talking about the special ed, so this is
is the
something different, isn't it?
large, significant number, that goes right to the
We're to the
city.
city.
Oh, okay.
That's not a school department budget line item. We manage it, but it goes right to the city.
Through the chair, what this is this is a payroll figure, and I apologize that I don't know it
No,
offhand.
that's
It's like
okay. The minute you said that, I
0.0875.
thought, okay, it's the other kind.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Carpenter?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to increase the McCarthy Integrated Preschool full-day annual tuition, 5 days, from $4,250 to $5,000 for the annual tuition.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Mr. Olympia?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you. At this point, and I don't want to belabor these budget sessions any more than anybody else does, but at this point, I think I'd be most comfortable with a recalculation from Mr. Stanton, not tonight, because I understand we're asking, and for the mayor to be present, because I don't necessarily want, the below-the-line cuts are the ones that are a little more concerning, at least to me. I have a feeling, or a hope, I guess, maybe it's a hope, maybe it's a dream, I don't know, but I'm hopeful that the mayor's able to increase his projected budget to some extent, and I'd rather know what that is before I start voting on some of these positions. That's just my thought, and
Mr. Rosio?
Well, I think as far as the guidance, I mean, that to me is a change in philosophy of how we do things. So I would, if the board was amendable, I would be okay to move that one forward. I think we can kind of look at these independent of one another and see what we're comfortable with moving forward and what we're not. I mean, when we're talking about teachers and classrooms, and that's, a direct line to the student, I agree with you. But I think when we're talking about a systems change, which to me is the additions as well as the change in how we do guidance, I would be okay with moving forward with those as far as below-the-line items.
to that point, me too.
Ms. Carpenter, on that point?
A couple of things, just with some of the changes that we've made and some of the motions that we have, the below-the-line ones, I think we might now have an issue with the custodial position, and that may need to be reinstated because we are now, I think there was an effect of not being in the Kylie with that situation. Am I correct?
So we have two floating custodial positions in the school system. One, or both, are used as substitutes for those custodians who are assigned to schools and are out on a daily basis. The other responsibility that they have is to clean 3 areas. One is the transportation department, the other is the Kylie, and a third would be, if we moved, the new building that we moved into. The reason that I put this cut on the list is because it's presently empty. It doesn't have a person in it. The thinking that I believe that you're thinking about is that if we're cutting back on custodial maintenance overtime throughout the district, then we probably can't afford to cut a custodian as well. I can't argue that. That's good thinking. Could we live without it? Yeah. Is it, a teacher or a custodian? Might be. But the philosophy behind what you're thinking, I believe, is correct. We would be a little light. We would be light not only in cleaning, but we would be light in being able to substitute throughout the district when a custodian is out.
Yeah, just evaluating some of the positions below the line. That is my thought. If we've cut the overtime, and then we don't have that floater, we're essentially probably going to be changing our budget later on to put the overtime back in. And the custodians are required to be in the building whenever we have functions, and they do get sick. So that, I realize it's not a teacher, but it also is a major function for our buildings. That's just something that I'd like to consider. I know that it sounds like Mr. Hockman and Mr. Rosignol are talking about reevaluating, maybe getting a new list, meeting again. My question would be, when would we meet again, and will the mayor be able to come, and do you need time to refigure, or would you like us to keep going?
Yeah.
Through the chair, I'd be comfortable to keep going. I'd like to get as far as we can tonight.
Yeah.
So that if we do have to meet again, it's bring in the mayor and close the deal. I would like to, I feel I have to say this, you know that I have conversations with the mayor before he has conversations in public about the budget. And he had alerted me that the number would be $300,000 less than the money he actually came up with. So he's already adjusted his thinking to the number that we have from the first conversations that I had with him 2 months ago about the number that he thought he was going to have. I don't know how much more flexibility there is, but I just wanted to say that on behalf of the mayor, because he's not here, that our beginning conversations were significantly lower, which would have meant many more cuts and much more pain. So he's already come up a few $100,000.
Mr. Hockman.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, Dr. Levine, and I appreciate the mayor. He's always been generous to the schools since he's been not only in office as mayor, but as a city councilor. But do you remember that feeling you had when the birth of your child, the elation you had, and the generosity that you felt? So to Ms. Carpenter's point, and to Mr. Rosignol's point, and to Dr. Levine's point, I'd be comfortable making a motion eliminating the proposed reduction for the kindergarten paras, the grade 3 teacher at the Brown School, the grade 4 teacher at the Welch School, and the grade 5 teacher at the Center School.
On that, would you be willing to add the custodian as we just spoke about?
I think I'd like
Would you like that to be?
a little more information on that.
Okay.
I think Ms. Carpenter makes a tremendously valid and thoughtful point. I'd like to understand it a little bit better, and I don't know that, I may need that fleshed out a little more at a subsequent time.
Okay. Ms. Dunn, on that point?
Thank you. Actually, it's a follow-up on what Mrs. Carpenter was speaking on regarding the custodial floater. If we are cutting a custodial floater and a maintenance floater, I will be honest, having been through so many budgets, when we have cut custodial staff, it has ended up creating a problem. It really has. The buildings definitely need to be maintained in good condition. We are basically trustees of public buildings, and we need to maintain them in a good, clean, healthy, and well-maintained condition. And over the years, cutting custodians has actually affected the ability to do that. The buildings and the cleaning actually have got more complicated over the years. There are a lot of things that are so different than when we attended school, just from the simple fact of being able to know which type of cleaning supplies have to be used, just to make sure that allergies and health conditions aren't affected. It's very different, and we've got a good skilled crew. If one of them is out, especially if they were out for an extended period of time, you do need someone who's on staff that's already well-trained in that area, and they can seamlessly fit in and take care of the building. I know each building is different. There are all kinds of different considerations, but if you have the additional, that floater, they will have worked in the buildings. They'll know the duties in those buildings, and in the summertime, I know this was a problem in the past, I don't know how it is now, but what used to happen in the summer was the custodial staff would be redeployed, and custodians from buildings would be pulled to go concentrate on a specific building, and then they'd move to the next one because they could do the heavy cleaning they can't do when everybody's in the building and everyone is present. So I really hate to see us go back down that path. I've seen the results, and I really would encourage everyone to support keeping that float position in there, especially if we cut the maintenance as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, well said, Ms. Dunn. You're right. I've been here long enough where I should know better. And thank you for reminding me. I would amend my motion to eliminating the proposed reduction for the kindergarten paras, the custodial floater, grade 3 teacher at the Brown, grade 4 teacher at the Welch, grade 5 teacher at the center for now, and then see where that leaves us. I think I make a subsequent motion regarding the positions. I think those should be done separately. Yeah. So.
Second.
On that motion?
Just for clarification regarding the teachers, so that would still stay with the reduction of the second at the Carroll and the third at the center, correct?
For now.
For now, right.
Yes.
Yep, no, I understand.
After looking through the chair, to Mr. Rosignol's point, looking at the chart that we received tonight, I think that the 3 positions that are in the motion are most critical.
Absolutely.
Not that the others aren't critical,
No,
but these are the most
I
critical.
completely understand. I just want a clarification.
It was.
Mr. Hockman, if you would, could you restate that just so we can get it on record properly?
Yes,
Okay.
so I'm making,
Oh, go ahead, Jared, keep that, it's okay. I'll take
my
it.
motion is to eliminate from consideration
Eliminate, yes.
the proposed reductions for kindergarten paras, custodian floater, grade 3 teacher at the Brown School, grade 4 teacher at the Welch School, and the grade 5 teacher at the Center School.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Anyone else on that motion?
You seconded it, correct?
I did second.
Seconded? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Rosano?
Yes.
Mr. Olympia?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
With
Rosano.
that, where we're looking at redoing our guidance department, then I would make a motion that we adopt the positions and other additions as stated in this proposed budget. So moved.
Relative to the guidance.
Well, relative to guidance, correct.
So if we can have some clarification, is that just a guidance position, or are the 3 additions?
I'll just stick with guidance for now.
Guidance now. Ms. Dunn, on that?
Was it second?
Was it a motion?
I made it as a motion.
On that motion, Ms. Dunn?
You know, I'll second it for discussion. I'll be honest, as far as the guidance department restructuring, I am in favor of that. However, I am concerned about cutting the 2, I know it's cutting 2 guidance counselors at the high school. And then one of those positions would be used as the department head for the district, and they would work at the high school. I would like to ask if it's possible to keep one of those cuts as a guidance counselor and turn the other one into a guidance department head. The only reason I'm asking that is because I'm looking at the numbers. If we have 1,500 students and you divide it out by a proposed 5,
6.
it would be proposed 6? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was a proposed 5. Okay. So they would be 250 per, okay.
It would actually probably be more than that. Just to explain again, the department presently has 7, including the department head. My proposal is to eliminate 2 guidance positions, but use one of them to put back the director of guidance.
Okay.
That person would have a modified schedule of students. So there would be 5 full-time guidance counselors and a director of guidance, all with student responsibilities, but the director would be modified. So there would be probably an increase over what they have now. However, we've lost 350 kids over a 5-year period. I believe that a reduction is warranted.
One other question we had brought up, and I can't remember when it was, about the potential of hiring a vocational counselor. Is that, we've got something here, where was it? I'm sorry, I had vocational teacher, a cut. And was that in any way related to a vocational counselor?
Through the chair. We haven't fulfilled what we thought was the promise of guidance, the marriage between guidance, either through one counselor or others, and the vocational department. Our new director of vocational services is working very hard to reestablish that relationship. It needs a new look, and we intend to look at that through the restructuring here.
Okay. And as far as any of the coordination between guidance and special education, where do the school adjustment counselors fall? Would they fall on the guidance side, or do they fall under special education side?
They fall, through the chair, they fall on the special education side. They see special education students who, range in anywhere from moderate to severe issues. So they're really special ed staff.
Okay. All right. Well, I will be honest, I do think that it is a necessity, and one of the things that I have actually learned, one of the first things I learned, I had asked about programs and was told that there are some programs we've never been able to get because we've never had a director of guidance. And they were programs for gifted students. It was a coordination between guidance and special education, and I think that this would give us a lot more opportunities for our students, in addition to streamlining that entire department and being able to have a very definitive line of supervision and, supervision and evaluation. I do think that it is important so that there is that continuity of services. Guidance counselors at the elementary level do very different things than those in the middle school and then those in the high school. They all provide, ultimately, the core service of guiding our students and helping them. But there are so many varied issues depending on the age, and it really would be very nice to be able to have a guidance department that that could come in and talk about bringing in new programs and making sure that there's follow through all the way up. So I definitely support this. I did have a question on the $100,000. Is that the salary, or does that include insurance as well?
That does include insurance. Okay. So, in us cutting back to 90 or 85, it might be a little light depending upon whether or not what insurance is taken, if insurance is taken. But, It's okay.
That I do understand, okay. And then the Director of Curriculum, if it's okay if I address that, we need that too. We have heard this over and over from every evaluation of our district, from anyone who has ever come in to give us advice about how to improve the delivery of services. And it is something right now that's critical at the high school level. And Ms. Murtagh and the staff have done a wonderful job on curriculum, but it has not been the 100% focus. And for years, anytime we've done any type of a self-audit or had any type of a self-study of this district, people have said, you don't have curriculum coordinators. You don't have what you need. And I think that it is time to do that, because you need to have that in this day and age with all of the components that go into teaching. Having a coordinated focus on curriculum, and especially at the high school level, where I know this person will be doing the bulk of the work.
Right.
I think you have to do it.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Maybe you can hold off and maybe have a motion on that at some point, but we do have a motion on the floor.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
Was it Mr. Olympio? And Mr. Olympio.
On that point, through the chair, so I would be in favor of adding those, obviously, those two positions, but as Ms. Carpenter pointed out earlier, at $85,000 apiece, so that's 30,000 right there, savings.
If I may.
That's what I was going to say, so I'm all
Okay,
set.
and I would as well. I think those two positions probably, it's obvious, we need those two positions. Every successful district nearby has them. They're just so important to the growth of our district and success in our district. So I know there's a motion on the floor. Do you want to?
I will amend to include both positions
Okay.
At,
at 85,000.
yeah.
All right.
And I'll second it again.
All right.
Thank you.
Seconded.
I forgot I'd already seconded the
On
other
the
one.
motion, Mr. Hoffman,
Yeah,
please.
just on the motion briefly, with regard to the two guidance positions, I assume that well, I shouldn't. Is the guidance coordinator, is that someone that you see as an internal candidate? Or would you be looking outside?
Well,
Would we
you're
be?
talking about the guidance director?
Yeah, yes,
That's probably not an appropriate discussion at this table.
okay. And are any of those reductions through attrition?
Which reductions are
The
you talking?
two guidance counselor positions?
No, for
Okay.
both people.
Thank you.
You're welcome. May I, through the chair?
Go ahead, and then
I would ask you for one more amendment. So at 85 or according to contract, because we are going to be bound by contract.
So moved.
that's a great point.
Thank you.
Mhm, Second.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yeah, I was thinking about it in a different way, at contract, but no more than 85.
I'm sorry.
I was thinking about it a different way, at contract, but no more than 85, but I'll yield.
Yeah, we can't put that limit on a contract. A contract is a contract, through the chair. So my next step will be to sit down with Ms. McGovern and negotiate where these people will fall on the scale, and we'll try to keep it as close to that number as possible. But there's contract language that guides that according to whom we hire.
Mr. Hoffman?
No.
Mr. Rossi?
I may be taking my motion completely off the table, because we're looking at changing a department. We're looking at adding a position. So I think the first thing we need to do is instruct the superintendent to add the position of a director of guidance system-wide, because we currently don't have that as a position in our unit. So before we vote on a position that we don't have, we have to actually create a position before we can really vote on it, to be perfectly honest with you. So in my opinion, we need to first make a motion to have the superintendent establish a director of guidance position, what it's going to entail, what it's going to look like, and from there, we can have a discussion on $85,000, $95,000. I'll yield to him, Mr.
Thank you.
Dr. Levine's.
You could do it that way, but I can't establish a position. I don't have that authority.
No, I'm saying we would establish that position.
By voting on this tonight, you would establish that position, and you would be directing me to create the job description and coming back to you with that job description,
Fair enough.
Which we would need to approve.
which you would need to
Correct.
approve.
Right.
So my motion, I'll keep my motion as is.
And
On that motion.
quickly on that point, I don't think we have the luxury of the time
No,
to
right,
do it the way
exactly.
you're,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyone else on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Just to clarify, was it the two positions?
And the department.
It was
Correct.
the two positions, the K to 12 guidance and the curriculum director
At 85?
Yes.
at
or-
85 or bound
in
by contract.
right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
And for further clarification, it was the two high school guidance positions and the department head of guidance that we were accepting the recommendation for.
Through the chair, just for clarification, through your motion regarding the guidance positions, those were already put off.
You didn't do
I didn't do that.
Oh, you didn't do those?
I thought you incorporated all that here.
that. No, we'll do it separate.
Yeah, we'll do it separate.
So we'll do this first, then
Yep.
we'll get back, okay.
Yeah.
So this motion is solely for the...
For the additions.
So the addition is those two
Yes.
positions.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes,
Mrs. Dunn?
yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Rosano.
So I'd make a motion to move forward with the recommendation of the reduction of the two high school guidance positions.
And the
On the
department
motion.
head. And the guidance department head.
The stipend.
Correct.
Yeah, the
Yes,
stipend.
and the guidance department head.
Yeah.
On the motion?
Second.
On the motion. Second by Mr. Hockman. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
So I think with the only other number that I'm comfortable going forward on tonight, and it's based upon the explanation provided by Dr. Levine, is the special education paras. The explanation that we received regarding that was that there's going to be a co-teaching model that's going to, there's a change in philosophical delivery of services to special education students, and it's not a reduction of special education paras in a vacuum. There's actually an increase of services with special education teachers.
Right.
And if that's what your explanation is, I think that that's a better method of delivery, and I would make a motion to adopt the reduction for the special education paras.
Second.
On the motion? Ms. Dunn?
Thank you. I have a question through you to Dr. Levine. Now I've got a couple questions. If we take away the special education paras and you have a co-teaching model, is that going to increase the cost of, are we going to have to hire additional teachers? How will it work?
No. Ruthie's not here to explain the details, but what's going to happen is the reduction of paras will be only half of what we presently have. We have approximately 20 or 19 in that, so the kids will combine, and two certified teachers will be in the room working together. That will necessitate fewer paras on a regular basis. And we are still working out some details. We met with the teachers 2 days ago, yesterday, 2 days ago. We also met with all the paras. Ruthie explained in detail the technical aspects of this, and everybody understands, and the teachers are on board. So what we're trying to do is transition this to take a look at whether or not this is the way to go in the future for other schools delivering similar services.
Will it help to consolidate classrooms as well?
Yes. We will
Okay.
gain, I think, 4 classrooms. Which means that a school that has been tight will at least have some room to take people out of a closet and put them in a
In the
classroom.
classroom?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And then, I know the number of paras, it usually depends upon what's written in people's IEPs. We always have to make adjustments once school starts. Is that going to be a problem at all?
Through the chair, no. We're meeting with all the parents, and we've already begun that process. so far, we have received nothing but rave reviews around this new delivery of services. They know they're going to get an increased service academically, and it just so happens that there'll be fewer people in the room. There'll still be people in the room. It's not like we're eliminating them completely.
Right. No, co-teaching is it's a very intense delivery of services, so I think it's a wonderful thing to do. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Dunn. Those are, thank you for those questions. And while we have Dr. Levine and, Mr. Stanton and Ms. Mertag here explaining these positions, I think my motion was a little insensitive, because I think that this is a subject that requires, to our viewing audience and to the public, an explanation by Ms. Gruby. And I think she's the one that can best describe how this co-teaching model is going to enhance services. And I'm comfortable with it, and it sounds like Ms. Dunn is too, because we have a little background. But I don't know that the general viewer does. And I think we're coming back anyway for at least one more session. So I would withdraw my motion, not for lack of support, but because I think a more detailed, our parents, our students, and the general public deserve a more detailed explanation than, and respectfully, anyone here is able to provide, just to give a lot more comfort level to a lot of people out there.
Just through the chair, I can have Mrs. Gruby here on Tuesday night for the regular meeting. And I do believe that I was incorrect in stating whether or not there would be an increase in teaching. There may be an increase in teaching because of this model.
I think that this affects so many people that let's get this one right with all the information out there before we address this.
Mr.
We'll do
Rossdale,
that.
on that point.
Yes. I know for most of this school year, we had a hard time recruiting paraprofessionals for special education. Are some of these positions through attrition that we didn't even end up filling this year?
Through the chair. We did a better job toward the end of the year at filling most of the positions. One of the reasons that we have trouble filling paraprofessional positions is when the economy is really good and people have a choice of what they want to do. So we have nearly full employment at 4% unemployment. It's harder to get people. But as the year went on, there were people, we actually had a couple of people that changed careers, one a police officer and another from another type of business that we're very happy with. So the answer to your question is probably not. There will actually probably be people that will lose their jobs through this reduction. It won't necessarily be the people that are leaving the program at the Brown, at the Brown. They will have the right by seniority to look at other jobs throughout the school system.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Carpenter?
I'm just wondering if we can get an idea of where we're at.
I have it. So through the chair, just for clarification, on the top portion, the only one that was not approved was the Kylie move expense. In addition, the special ed legal was reduced to $27,855. Therefore, the total top portion in cuts is $1,483,634. Then we're going to add $39,000 for the McCarthy tuitions. I'm adding that as a negative because I'll add that to an offset. Therefore, that amount goes to $1,522,634. And that delta is the difference between the 1.5 that you're seeing there, 1,570,779, is $48,145. Now, looking at the bottom section, the K-Paras, the cut has been eliminated. There has been nothing voted on the department head for consumer ed or the maintenance floater. Custodian floater has been eliminated. The high school teachers has not been approved yet. Same with the special ed paras. The $160,000 for the guidance position has. The department head for the guidance has. Nothing on the phys ed teacher. We eliminated the grade 3 teacher at the Brown, as well as the Welsh and the grade 5 teacher at the center. Therefore, we've only cut $164,500 from that section. Down at the bottom section, we reduced the additions in the two positions at 85 apiece at 170.
So what, you said we've only reduced that by 160. What's that bottom line number now, down here?
164,500. 164,500. Did I miss something?
No, I'm talking about, we've got 1.495 million.
Oh, so,
We've reduced those cuts by 164,000?
so it's 1,330,568.
So by putting back the teachers that were recommended, the custodial floater, and the K-paras, we have reduced by 164,000 there. We have reduced by 48,000 up top, so we need to find the sum of 164 and 48. And we still have 183 surplus on the bottom. So 164 and 48 is 212. 212, 183 from 212. It's $29,000 that I now have as a delta with everything that you've put back. Is that correct?
Just proving that.
Don't ever say I'm wrong. Just say that you made a mistake in the numbers that you gave. It's a good question. Yes, I think it is 39 grand.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that added, did you increase by 39, the McCarthy?
I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to give you an exact, bear with me.
My figures say that I'm now down $29,000 with what you've put back. I hope that's correct, because that's livable.
So
Mr. Hockman?
you're saying that we have $29,000 still to play with?
No,
We're
I'm
in the
saying that
negative.
I have to find 29,000.
Good. So I'm going to now make a motion to eliminate from the budget lines under the administration 22 rent and 22 move.
I just want to double check that number.
I'm sorry, what line are you looking at, just so I can be on the same page?
Yeah, it's on the administration portion of the budget, the third to last and second to last lines.
Because it seems to me we put back 3 teachers, through the chair, we put back 3 teachers, which I had at 210,000. And then we put back custodian, which is 260. So I'm not sure how you got to the 164. And we put back the K-paras,
78,
which will
right.
cost us,
So 338.
I mean, I'm looking at over $350,000 in putbacks.
Yep. And I only included the 164,500 as what was approved, so now I'm just adding up that bottom section that Dr. Levine had. And I
Right.
apologize for the delay here.
It's okay. We're doing this on the fly.
Make your motion again, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, while those calculations are taking place, and I would make a motion to eliminate from the budget administration lines 22 rent and 22 move.
Second for discussion.
Seconded by Mr. Rossignol on the motion. Mr. Rossignol?
The only question I have, and I've banged this drum this entire time, is a contingency plan if that building goes under. So I just want to keep that in the back of everybody's mind, but I am in favor of this motion.
And to Mr. Rossignol's point, you know, I look at this as, that contingency plan as the contingency plan, if God forbid something were to happen to any one of our buildings, the money's going to come up from somewhere. However, you know, this is something that I can hold on. I think the mayor may have some voice here, and he's certainly entitled to, in his position, to speak on this. So I can reserve on this And if I can withdraw the motion, which I just did, and at that point, I'm comfortable for tonight.
Mr. Rosignol?
Through the chair, I'd be okay with keeping the motion. We're obviously not finished because we're still a few $100,000 away.
Yeah.
Because we can always, as long as we're not closing out the budget session, we can always
Put it back.
Continue.
bring it, exactly. So I'd be amendable for you to keep the motion.
In that case, I remove.
So there's a motion seconded by Mr. Rosignol. On the motion, anyone else? Dr. Levine?
Thank you. I really can't speak on motions, but, you know. I just want to bring to your attention that it's not the money so much that I'm concerned about. It is the contingency, as you wisely stated. I want to give you some scenarios. I do believe that we could stay at the Kiley building for a year, everybody. I believe we can do that. The problem is going to be the following year. Let's say, for example, that MSBA approves us this summer, which I think they will. Within a year's period of time, somebody's going to put a shovel in the ground, the architect's going to be hired, the construction people are going to be hired, and they're going to start renovating that building, and we have to go somewhere. The building that's available now, downtown, is likely not going to be available. No one who owns that building, which is empty, is going to sit tight and wait a year for us while they have no income. I know that, Mr. Hockman, you have said we'll move somewhere. And you're probably right, we might. I just don't know where.
Mr. Hock?
To Dr. Levine's point, I don't make this motion because I want the administration to stay at the Kiley. It's not a solution. However, with not knowing whether or not the MSBA is going to, in fact, approve the SOI that we put forward, and we all hope that they do, and we hope that we need to find money to move the administration. And perhaps that building is available, and perhaps it's not. And that's one of the reasons I said I know the mayor has a grander plan for consolidating governmental services in the downtown area, where I was willing to wait for him. But we have an abundance of space. It may not be where the administration or the mayor wishes it to be, but Centennial Park is vacant at a 30% or higher rate. There's space available that we can get into for leasing if that's what we choose to do. Again, it may not be ideal in terms of where we want it to be. And just on one other point, and then I'll move on, and we'll take a vote, I guess. I don't know if we ever built out that PLA space. There's some we did build that out, so that's not available. So that's good that that's getting used. So I'll yield. It looks like Chairman Nico.
Mr. Hockman, on your motion and on your point, there is a Building and Grounds Subcommittee meeting on Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock. It looks like we're going to probably have to move forward a budget meeting. What I may ask is to move the Building and Grounds Subcommittee meeting at 5 p.m. and then have our budget meeting at 6, followed by our school committee meeting. And that way we can get some more details on Building and Grounds and have the mayor present as well. And maybe, I was wondering if you would be okay with that, if you would rescind your motion, and then we can take it up on Tuesday evening.
I think you're going to have to start calling me Mr. Duncan. I'm happy either way. I really...
Through the chair to the chair. To be honest with you, it doesn't matter because we're not closing our budget session.
Sure.
So we can vote on it as a cut, and we can bring it back under Building and Grounds if there's an argument for it.
Yeah.
Or we can table the motion and not vote on it at all, or we can rescind the motion. To be perfectly honest with you, any one of the three scenarios really doesn't matter because we're not closing out our budget session.
I'm going to withdraw my motion and move to recess.
Okay.
Move to recess, and our next budget meeting will be
We could
Tuesday at
Tuesday.
6, according to the chairman. Second.
Did you want to... I can get rid of that.
I was looking at my calendar.
So if we could have everyone just take a peek at that. So what we would do is we would have the 5 o'clock Building and Grounds, 6 o'clock budget meeting, followed by our school committee meeting after our budget meeting.
Okay. That works. Did you post those yet?
The subcommittee meeting is posted for 6 PM on Tuesday. I would ask that if we could just move that to 5 PM and then have our our budget meeting at 6 PM, followed by our school committee meeting at that point.
So have them reposted.
We'll have them reposted. I'll get in touch with Marge.
Buildings and Grounds at
5 PM, 6 o'clock we would budget.
and then the school. I'll take care of
And I'm
that.
assuming we'll have an updated list of everything that we've had a discussion on tonight.
And if we can have that as soon as possible, electronically or otherwise.
Anything else? Motion to,
Yep, Jared already made it.
oh, he did?
Yep.
Thank you.
Great job.